long ago, has bruised stuff in there. He's going to go see the doctor. We need to continue to lift him up in our prayer. My mom and dad are doing fine over there in the assisted living in Bastrop. We moved my dad to a bigger room. Lisa was over there talking to my dad yesterday, and she told me a story. He said, he's talking to Lisa. He goes, Jeff's a smart guy. That's what he said to her. And it's like, that makes you feel good hearing from your dad. And she goes, well, maybe. And then he goes, well, the smartest thing he ever did was marry you. So so I don't know. That's as smart as I get right there. I'm as smart as Lisa. But no, so y'all keep my dad up and my mom and everybody. I know there's something going on in everybody's life in here. So let's pray. Let's go to God. Jesus has made that possible. Thank you, Father, for today. I do thank you for my parents, Lord, who are still going strong. I just pray that you continue to lift them up. We'll lift up Danny today, Lord. I know he's hurting. Lord, I pray that they can find out what's going on and help him to get better, Lord, that you could heal him. Lord, I know there's folks, Lord, that are without families, Lord, being loved on today, and I just pray that you're going to guide them and watch over them. There's people that's lost loved ones. Lord, there's just so much going on. Would you lift them up? Would you comfort them? You're the God of all comfort. And just make us, Lord, we just need to feel that comfort in our souls that you've got us. Be with us in the remaining time that we have today. Bless this offering, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you, Leanne. I've got a few announcements I need to make just to make sure everybody is aware. As Melissa's already made known, we do have a business meeting on Wednesday. This is where, I don't know what kind of churches you've been in the past, but here at this church, all the monies that's given is known by the congregation. We are all in this together, so you know where all the money's going and how much is given. Please come and help be a part of where that money needs to go as we move forward as a church in this coming fiscal year. Don't like to talk about business too much at church, but we do have to keep the lights on and the air condition, in this case the heater. Somebody says you don't have the heater on, but we never turn the heater on. We're trying to save money, okay? So wear a coat, my goodness, get a sweater. Anyway, but in a couple of weeks, on the 13th of February, I think that's Sunday, it's Super Bowl. And so we're not having church that day because we think football is much more important. No, we're just kidding. You got to come on Super Bowl Sunday. We do a thing, I don't know that any other church does it. We do a Super Bowl sermon. And, we got commercials. We got the whole thing. So just bring your cheese dip. And can we have cheese dip in here? Can't have cheese dip in this room. But anyway, we're going to have fun. And then on the 20th, I'm excited. Our elders have been meeting with several men in our church, and we have, one of the things is my dad is just not able to serve as much as he was able to, and Jeff Moore is no longer coming here. And so we wanted to ordain a man to be an elder in our church. And if you don't know what an elder is supposed to do, go home today and read Titus, and there's some verses in Timothy. And if you think that you're a candidate for an elder, once you read those verses, you go, man, I'm glad they didn't talk to me. But we have called Ron Hilliard to be an elder of our church. He's the guy who plays the guitar up here, and I'm always like, hey, man. And just one of our members that's been coming here a long time, helps coordinate, teaches our class, in our adult classes, just a great guy. If you know any reason why we shouldn't be calling Ron to help be one of the spiritual leaders of our church, you'll just need to come to me and some of the other elders and tell us. But I think you're in pretty good shape, right? You're no longer on parole, right? I think that's the case. But that Sunday morning, if you've never been a part of an ordination service, you want to come, I've asked for him to share about 15 minutes. I'll be very brief. We're going to lay some hands on him, and we're going to ordain him. It's a special calling, and it's very, very important as we continue on as a church. And so that's what's coming up. That'll be on the 20th. We got Super Bowl sermon on the 13th. And next week, it's going to be some random thing. Today, it's kind of a random thing. Well, I tell you what inspired me was the church budget this year. And so if you hate coming to church because they always talk about money, boy, did you ever pick a bad day to come to church. We typically don't talk about money here, and I'm not going to really talk about your money today. There's some verses in the Bible that a lot of preachers don't like to talk about for two reasons. One is that's a difficult verse, so they kind of steer away from it. Another reason is some preachers think, well, that verse or these set of verses don't really apply to anybody that comes to our church. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think I ran across some verses that do not apply to anyone who goes here. But I ran across another verse in Timothy. This is in 2 Timothy 3:16 that says this, that all Scripture is God-breathed and is useful. Like all of it is God-breathed, and all of it is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. So even though I don't think it's going to apply to anyone here today, I think we still need to talk about it. And so to introduce the subject, I got just a quick video. It's only a minute long, so turn the lights down, we'll watch this, and then we'll continue on. That's one way to be rich. All right, so we're going to talk about how to be rich. Again, doesn't apply to anybody. Actually, don't get confused. This is not how to become rich. Okay, this is not a seminar on how to become rich, because if I knew that, I probably wouldn't be here. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So this is, if you ever become rich, how to be rich. Does that make sense? In other words, how to be a good rich person. And again, I knew this wasn't going to apply to anybody here today. I don't know if you've ever met anybody that's rich and kind of asked them, how did you become rich? Have you ever ran into somebody like that? I remember as a kid, I met, there was an old guy that was very wealthy, according to my mom and dad, and so I remember asking him, how did you become rich? And he told me that he grew up in the Great Depression. He was very poor, and when he was down to his last nickel, he took that nickel and he bought an apple from the local produce market. And he said he polished that apple for hours. And he was able to sell this shiny apple that he paid a nickel to someone else for a dime, and he doubled his money. He said, and then I took that dime and I bought 2 more apples and I polished those up, took hours. And I was able to sell those 2 apples that I bought for a dime for 20 cents. He said he continued this for over a month, and by the end of the month, his fortune had grown to $1.50. And then he said his father-in-law passed away and left him and his wife $20 million. But anyway, that's how he got rich. Now, I did my research this week. I looked high and low all through the Bible, even internet searched it, on any verse in the Bible that tells us how we can become rich, because I know we all want to become rich, right? Everybody wants to be rich. So I searched, I couldn't find any verses on how to become rich, at least earthly rich. There's a lot of verses on how to be rich in eternity, which I don't know if you know this, but we're going to spend a lot more time there than we ever are here, but we like to focus on how to be rich here. But there's a lot of verses on how to be rich later. But I did find a couple of verses on how to be a good rich person if you already are rich, okay? So, just in case, so again, this doesn't apply to anyone here, but just in case you ever do become rich, I thought maybe we should go over these verses so that you would be a good rich person. Does that make sense? All right, again, so what we're going to do, we're going to look at a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to a protege of his. His name was Timothy. He took Timothy under his arm right there at the beginning of his ministry. He groomed Timothy. Timothy followed him around. He shared the gospel with Timothy. Timothy became a Jesus Christ follower, a Christian, and later he would be installed as the pastor of a big church in the city of Ephesus. So Timothy is a pastor in Ephesus. Paul is writing him a letter, and evidently Timothy had a lot of rich people that went to his church, right? So he had one of those big, giant, nice churches, right? And he had a lot of rich people going there, and Paul decided he better write a letter to him explaining how to be a good rich person. He says, hey, you got a lot of rich people. Let me tell you how you should instruct the rich people. It's not bad to be rich. There's just a way of living as rich. So Paul knew a couple things that we all know. I don't know if you know this, but most people aren't very good at being rich. The rich people aren't very good at being rich. That's still true today, right? According to the IRS, you know, our government agency that want all your money, according to the IRS, the more money a person makes, in other words, the richer they get, the less percentage those people give away to charitable contributions. The IRS says that poor people actually give a higher percentage of their income than rich people do. In other words, we know that the rich people give more dollars, but in terms of percentage, the poor are blowing away the rich people. So to get things started today, I thought I'd tell you, with my limited knowledge, some of the things I know about rich people. Good news is we don't have anybody here, but please don't let this go outside these walls, okay? We don't want to offend anybody. A couple of things I've noticed about rich people is that they'll never admit to being rich. Have you ever had anybody that you know is rich admit to you that they're rich? They will never admit to being rich, which is strange because tall people will always admit to being tall, and short people will admit to being tall, and athletic people will admit to being athletic, but you're never going to find a rich person admitting that they're rich. It just doesn't happen. I went to YouGov.com, you can check this out, who did a survey of 1,000 Americans, just a wide spectrum of Americans, and they asked these 1,000 Americans in the survey, they said, how much money do you need to earn a year to be rich? This was the question. This is the average response of 1,000 Americans. They said they would need to earn between $90,000 and $100,000 a year. And now, I don't know about you. This is just what your average Americans are thinking, okay? If you go to Money Magazine, who did a similar survey, you may or may not know this. I'm pretty sure no one subscribes to Money Magazine in here. You have to average about $175K, their average reader. That's about what they make. They asked the subscribers of Money Magazine, how much money would you need to have in the bank in order for you to consider yourself rich? And the average the response they got from those folks was they feel rich if they had $5 million in the bank. 1 million wasn't good enough, 2 million wasn't good enough, but if they had 5 million in the bank, then they would feel rich. But I guarantee you, if you found somebody that had 5 million in the bank and you asked that person, do you consider yourself rich, what would they say? No, because rich people never admit to being rich. It's just what I've noticed. Here's something else I've noticed about rich people. Here's a conclusion. Here's the bottom line about rich people. Nobody's rich, but everybody knows somebody who is, right? How many know a rich person? Raise your hand. All right. How many rich people we got in here? Ah. So I'm just throwing out. Nobody's rich, but everybody knows somebody who is. Here's something else I noticed about rich people. By the way, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. I'm telling you, this is not for our congregation. Don't feel uncomfortable. Here's something else I've noticed about rich people. Rich people never seem happy for very long with the stuff they buy, right? And so rich people do this little thing. It's kind of weird. They call it upgrade. You ever heard of that? Upgrade? They upgrade. An upgrade is when you have something that works perfectly fine, it's in good condition, but you want another one just like it but newer, right? Have you ever heard of this phenomenon? It's crazy, right? For example, rich people will go onto a dealership, they'll drive into with their nice car that works just perfectly fine, that has less than 100,000 miles on it, and they will buy another one almost just like it, right? Just more money. Basically does the same thing as the old one they had. You don't know what a car does? It goes from point A to point B, okay? That's all it does. Anyway, so and they'll do it. It's crazy. Sometimes, I've heard this one, this is kind of, maybe it's one of those myths that's just getting passed around, but I hear that rich people will often walk into a kitchen that has countertops, a refrigerator, a microwave oven, a dishwasher, maybe an oven, and they'll look at it and they'll just rip it all out. And they'll replace it with a countertop, a refrigerator, a microwave, and an oven. And they'll just sit back and they'll marvel at their newer kitchen. Have you ever heard of this? And then they'll order a pizza and have a teenager deliver it to their door. Anyway, it's called an upgrade, and it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's happening. You've probably seen this one. Rich people will go to an Apple store and they'll stand in line with their iPhone to buy the next iPhone. And while they're in line, they will text people that, hey, I'm in line to buy another iPhone, and they'll take a picture with their old iPhone that they're in line to get a new iPhone. And they're going, man, and then right before they turn their old phone off, they'll take a picture of the new one, text that out to everybody, say, this is what I got. It's crazy. It's called upgrade. Upgrade. All right, check this out. Maybe you can finish this sentence for me. Rich people will stand in front of their closet that is full of clothes, and they will say, I had nothing to wear. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. I have nothing to wear. I've heard of this one. Maybe you have or not. I hear that there's some women, rich women, that have upwards to 5 pairs of shoes. Is that real? Could that be possible? I don't know if that's possible. I got some tennis shoes and some sandals, and I got these black shoes that I wear every single Sunday, and I do have some brown shoes, but none of my brown stuff's fitting. I stand in front of my closet and go, man, I'm so fat, I can't wear any of this anymore. That's what I say. That's what I say. Anyway, I don't know about what you're saying. Rich people build houses for their cars. Yeah, to put their car in. It's like, I don't want my car to get cold. I found this. 100 years ago, people owned, basically, 100 years ago, like at the turn of the century, 1910, 1921, pretty much everybody still owned a horse, and only the rich owned cars. Today, everybody owns cars, and only the rich own the horses. Go figure that one out. Okay, I don't know. Aren't you glad that we're just here and the rich people are somewhere out there today? Here's another thing rich people do. They'll gather up the stuff that they don't use anymore, perfectly good stuff. Clothes that aren't worn out or torn or anything, and they will take them and they'll drop them off, and they'll feel good about giving stuff away that they don't even want anymore. But they're really just making room for more stuff. That's all they're doing. Now, here's my hope for everybody in the room. I hope that all of you become rich one day. I really do. But when you get to become rich, I just want you to be good at it. And that's what the Apostle Paul is going to try to communicate to Timothy how to be a good, rich person. And so this is what he writes. He writes it to Timothy, who's the pastor of a church who must have had a lot of rich people. So he says this to Timothy. He says, Timothy, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant. Paul says the tendency of the rich as they get more and more, as they become a little arrogant. They tend to kind of look down upon the less fortunate, you know. It's just a tendency. Timothy, Paul is saying, Timothy, would you remind the rich people, please don't do that. Just don't do that. He says also, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. Now, Paul is saying something. He says that, you know, people that begin to make more money, you know, they get a raise and, you know, they get the promotion, they get the business going, and the business is starting to grow. Paul says there's a tendency for people's hope to migrate towards, away from God and towards, if I just had more money, then I'd be okay. He says that's the tendency of the rich, that their hope migrates away from God and migrates toward their money. You know, if I just had this amount of money, everybody has a number in your head. If I just had this amount of money, then I would feel secure, you know, from anything ever bad happening to me. He says, Paul says, Timothy, that's a common thing, your theme you're going to find amongst the rich people. Matter of fact, you may or may not know this. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago. Solomon, remember Solomon? Probably, I think, the richest man ever born, richer than Jeff Bezos even, and all of them out there. Third king of Israel, you know, during the golden age of Israel, a man of great wealth and great wisdom, who wrote a lot of the Proverbs that we read. And I believe that he wrote Proverbs 18:11, which says this, the wealth of the rich is their fortified city. The more money I got, the stronger I'm going to feel. They imagine it a wall too high to scale. Nothing's going to get over my wall of money. Nothing's going to get at me. He says, rich people think that they can build a wall so high of their wealth that they will be fully protected. But he said they're imagining it, okay? Because it's not true. It is a pipe dream. There is no amount of money, a wall big enough that's ever going to make anyone feel secure. He says it doesn't exist. Here's a question I've asked before. How much money would you need in order to feel secure, to feel financially, okay, I'm good, nothing's going to, how much money would you need to have? What is that number in your head? And everybody in the room has the same answer, more than I have. Everybody, it's more than you currently have. Everybody has the same answer. You know why that is? Because we have what ifs. We have these what ifs. Well, and then rich people, they have big what ifs, right? What if, you know, poor people, we have what ifs. What if we get sick? What if I can't work anymore? How am I going to pay my bills? What if, you know, and the more you got to lose. What if the stock market crashes? What if, you know, I've already lived through the 2009-8 thing, haven't you? My 401k went to about a 201k in a heartbeat. Right? And so, you know, because we have these what ifs, and so, you know, we're always trying to build this mountain, but how much would it make? How much do you need? How big does your wall need to be to feel secure? Paul says it's an imaginary wall. It doesn't exist. It's a pipe dream. Do you know why people, according to our rich people are less generous than poor people? And I was trying to figure out, you know, I think one of the reasons that rich people are less generous than poor people is that poor people never place their hope in their wealth. Why would they? Poor people know, I ain't never saving myself into security. I'm never going to build my wall hall enough. Poor people know that's a pipe dream. I don't even need to try. So poor people tend to put their hope in God and not their wealth. It's just the way it works. And so whatever they have, their hands are always open. I'm telling you, my grandmother, on my mom's side, I remember I had to use an outhouse till I was 24, okay, when I go to visit her. I've told you that before. But very poor. But her hand was always open. Food was always there for anybody. If there was a need in the community, boom, she was at that house making them food, doing whatever. I just noticed that the poorer the folks I met, the more generous they were. Because they're not built, their hope is not in their money. Their hope is not in building a wall that's so big I'm going to feel secure one day. Their hope is in God. But the more money we make, our hope tends to migrate toward our money. Like if I just had more of that, money makes the same promise of God. If you have enough of me, I'll take care of you. If you have enough of me, you'll be okay. That's the same promise God makes. I don't know if you watch it. I watch a series on the History Channel called The Men Who Built America. Great series. And all these men, almost all of them start with nothing. They all started poor. We had John D. Rockefeller, who made his money in the oil business, right? Cornelius Vanderbilt, who did all the railroads. Andrew Carnegie, Pittsburgh Steel. You heard these guys? J.P. Morgan, Henry Ford. Every one of these men became billionaires. Billionaires. But none of them ever stopped working. None of them ever stopped building their wall. You know why? Because it just wasn't high enough for them. It never got high enough because they had too many but what ifs. But what ifs. When your hope shifts towards your wealth and the accumulation of more wealth, you got to hang on to what you got. You can't afford, as a rich person, to give anything away, really, if you think about it. Oh, you might give a little money here and there. But in terms of actual generosity, generally in my heart, man, I just want to help. The rich people can't afford it. It costs a lot to build that wall. And in this case, you can't get Mexico to pay for it. I just had to throw that in there. It just popped in my head. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm going to go. It had nothing to do with what I was talking about. Anyway, how many's building that financial wall today? Let's go back to Paul's letter, please. Let's go back to God. So he goes, command those who are rich in this present world, right, not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, okay? He says, but to put their hope in God. You know, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is in Matthew chapter 5 to Matthew chapter 7. Check it out. It takes you about 20 minutes to read the whole thing. And when he's doing this Sermon on the Mount, he's got everybody there. He's got the poor of the poor. He's got the middle income folks are there. He's got the rich people are in the audience. He's got the non-religious. He's got the religious. He's got every group of people listening to this message he's given on this side of this mountain. And he tells them in Matthew 6:21, or he reminds them that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is where you're going to find your heart, right? And you may or may not know this, but Jesus, and we talk about this all the time, he's not interested in your money. Jesus Christ is interested in your heart. Because he knows if you give him your treasure, your heart's going to follow. Right? If you give Jesus your treasure, your heart will follow. But if your hope is in your treasure then becomes your God, and you'll find out at the end that it's not going to make any kind of difference. Not in your life, and it never was used to make a difference in anyone else's life. I know we don't have any rich people here, at least anybody that would admit it, but maybe some of you are on your way to becoming rich, right? And so let me ask you a question. Have you noticed your faith, your hope starting to shift? Are you becoming more concerned about the money in the bank? And do you have enough? Have you noticed your hope shifting? Which one of these statements brings you the most anxiety? I'll put them up there. There is no God, or you have no money. There is no God. Which one gives you, there is no God. He doesn't exist. When you die, it's over. It's it. There's no God. Or you have no money. Your bank account is at zero. You don't have a job. You don't have a prospect of ever making a single dime. You're at $0 in the bank. Or there's no God. Which one gives you the greatest anxiety? I asked Lisa this question the other night. Let me put this question in a different context. If you're in the hospital and you're hooked up to everything they could possibly hook you up to. And the doctor has come in and they said, you do not have long to live. Which one of these two statements now gives you the most anxiety? You know, here's what's going to happen on that deathbed at the end of your life. No matter where your hope has shifted throughout your life, in those last moments, you know where everybody's hope shifts? Back to God. Everybody shifts back to God at the end of their life. I don't care if you're an atheist. I don't care if you've denied God your whole life. I don't care if you've never been to church. Everybody at the end, their hope is going to shift to, I hope there's a God. I hope there's something more after this. Everybody, it doesn't matter. Everybody's does. You know? So here's the question, and it's Solomon, and it's Paul, and it's even Jesus' point this morning. If your hope is going to be in God at the end of your life, then why not consider putting your hope in God right now in the middle of your life? How about do it now? Paul wraps up his comments with Timothy by saying this. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God. And he says this, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. This is such great news. This is great news. It's okay. God wants you to go get the latest iPhone. He does. He wants you to trash your kitchen. He wants you to buy more shoes. It's okay because God richly provides everything for our enjoyment. But please do not make the mistake of putting your hope in your wealth. Don't grab your hands around it so tight that's my hope. Don't make that mistake. Don't make the mistake of trying to build a wall that's just unscalable, that it will never be high enough where you'll feel comfortable. You know what? If you're building walls, you're just not going to be generous. You're not going to be generous with your kids, with your spouse, with your wife, with your husband. You're not going to be generous with your time. You're not going to be generous with your money. And one day, you're going to be lying in bed and you're going to be praying, oh God, help me. I hope you're there. And the good news is that our God is gracious and he is loving and he's going to accept you no matter what, because the cross has done it all, okay? He is gracious. But the bad news is God's not going to let you go back and live your 30s again or your 40s or your 50s. Those days will be gone. It will be too late. And so if anybody in this room ever become rich, I just want you to be good at it. And Paul wants you to be good at it. My wife says I'm never positive. So I thought I'd end on a positive note. If you go to this website right here, it's called howrichami.org. And you don't have to put your name in or anything, but if you put in what you make in 1 year, it will come back and it will tell you where you rank among the richest people on the planet. Okay? Why are y'all laughing? So, because nobody wants to admit to being rich, but this thing will tell you, and how do you determine if you're rich? You compare yourself to everybody else, right? How rich am I compared to everybody else? Well, this compares you to everybody else. We Americans just think everybody else is America. No. There's over 7 billion people that God has so loved and has made a way for. And it is our job to go into all the nations and proclaim Jesus Christ to them. And I don't know if you know that, but that's going to take the rich and some of the monies to make that happen. That's what we've been called to do. But if you could, as an example, again, I don't make this, but I put in what if you make $20,000 a year on this website? $20,000 a year, you're in the top 10% of the richest people on the planet. Top 10. Now that should make some of you happy, right? You came to church all poor and broke, but you're leaving wealthy. Think about that, right? Man, I'm rich, right? You came in knowing that you were poor, but you're leaving knowing you're wealthy. And if you don't feel that way, it's probably because you've been trying, your hope has been shifting toward, I need more of this, I need more money, versus I need more of him. I need more of him. I need more of him. We all need more Jesus. So our hands will open up because God richly provides. And if you know that and you live under that, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Right? He's our wall. He's our wall. Maybe if you don't feel rich, it's maybe because you haven't been practicing at being rich. If you're going to practice at being rich, let's practice at being good rich, as Paul has laid out to Timothy in this letter. Leanne's going to come up, and we're going to play an invitation. It's that song, Money, 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 Money. Y'all know that song? We don't know. We're not singing that one? All right. How about that? All right, we'll sing What a Friend We Have in Jesus. How about that one? Let's all stand and sing that. If you want to come and pray, you can come today. Need a church home? We're here. Help me sing that today. Today. I'll see you Wednesday. We got a budget to talk about, okay? Y'all have a great Sunday.